Bernie Sanders' report reveals over half of older adults survive on under $30,000 a year. Americans deserve to retire with dignity, but the current system won't allow it. What are your thoughts? Survive on under $30,000 a year doesn't give us much to go off of. The point of saving for retirement is that you can survive on your savings. Passive income. Is that passive income? Spending. Active income. They might comfortably bring in $30,000 while are on bonds with a 3 yield, meaning they've got $1 million worth of safe investments just sitting there plus whatever they have in savings. Old people don't make much money. That's not necessarily a problem. The problem comes in when they don't make much money and they have nothing to support themselves with, and then use capitalist propaganda to make workers think public sector workers who had bargained pensions were the problem when it was really the fat cat squeezing working folks every way they could. Think about how many people just fucked by the likes of Mitt Romney and his ilk out of private sector pensions they earned. Form a union. Demand a pension. They aren't going to just give it to you. And the government isn't going to come to the rescue. The biggest reason for this is that they have had to deal with a lifetime of the government stealing their earnings to fund the Social Security Ponzi scheme. The SS Trust routinely underperforms not just the market, but T-bills, and needs to be ended yesterday. Beyond that, I don't have much sympathy. They had their entire lives to save and plan for retirement during 50 years of unprecedented market growth. If someone chose not to save and is entirely reliant on SS, that's a bed they made themselves. It's worse when those that retire suddenly need to use nursing home services. There is nitrogen monoxide dignity. In America, Medicare Medicaid only covers the first 100 days of nursing homes. That's it. The rest you have to pay out of pocket, which is $815K every month, and most insurance packages don't cover it either until you're drained down to $2K. When Medicaid finally picks up the tab, it's ridiculous that you're left with less money than it takes to have funeral service. Just more hypocritical Democrat blathering. Vermont, like many rich blue states, has some of the worst disabled vet property tax exemptions in the country. An exemption I think the elderly should be entitled to as well unless they're rich. FE can't put forth the basic effort to allow people who are crippled by serving their country to retire in dignity. I have zero expectations for this rhetoric to become anything more than just rhetoric. Me to feel bad for the I got mine. Fuck you generation that is now retiring after doing everything they possibly could to dodge responsibility for the last 40 years, and now holding their hands out. XOB. I realize generalizing an entire generation is unfair, and many of these folks never had much, but holy shit is it hard to not look at the state of everything since the early 90s and not hold them all accountable. How many of them didn't have retirement accounts? My mother and stepfather chose not to fund a retirement account for the entire time that they worked, and now I have to pay for everything. The problem is too many people think Social Security will be enough to take care of them, and it's not. I think Social Security and its foreign counterparts are going to bankrupt the world economy. We should be able to save money for ourselves out of our paychecks for retirement instead of giving it to the government in hopes that they'll give it back when we're in our sundown years. They were at 50 home ownership decades before any age group and raised their kids in homes. I'm not too worried that someone with a home paid off is making $30K a year and might have to downgrade their net worth is where we should have pegged this at. I read a financial article recently that said the rising cost of living wasn't due to corporate greed, but a natural side effect of the average worker's salary being $100,000. These corporate types are told what they want to hear. I'm a huge advocate of social support systems, for the elderly, for the poor, for the uninsured. Every person should have their basic needs met and a minimum standard of living guaranteed. That generation also owns the companies that pay us shit, the LLCs that jack up our rent, and corporations raising prices on everything for no particular reason. Where's our dignity? As if the gentry care. Their little miniaturized great filter is working as intended. Can't you hear the sounds of tea saucers clinking and narcissistic laughter from here? We need to do much more for our elderly. Also need to provide euthanasia solutions for those with terminal diseases. Hospice and nursing home care is way too expensive. So Redditors feel bad for boomers based on this report. But in other threads complain the boomers were greedy and ruin everything for the following generations. Why should the youth of today care about the boomers who sabotage them? The youth won't be getting the same social security benefits also. I say fuck them. My thoughts, that sucks. Wonder why most of them keep voting against their interests. Oh well, I'm on track for my retirement plan. Anyway, he's right, my aunt recently passed away. 80 years old and still working because she couldn't afford to retire. Try living on social security only. Not to mention Medicare, which you have to pay for. That's not a great life. Get this to the sons where open ageism is tolerated and even encourages our anti-work. Looking at you. He's talking about the boomer generation that quiet literally destroyed America. Get government out of it. Everything they touch is inefficient and expensive. And yet, 3 billionaires hoard more wealth than 50 of the country. Old, retire, dignity. These are not words I am to be accustomed with. Social security is a Ponzi scheme that has screwed over Americans. He is right, but it's also going to be worse in 10 years.